Hey everyone, welcome back to Chuck's Pub Fireside Chat, where Navy history, sea stories, and a little bit of salt water come together by the fire. Now picture this. It's 2009 and you're on board a U.S. Navy destroyer operating in the Indian Ocean, and you've been out to sea for 32 days straight, and it doesn't look like you're going to be back in port anytime soon. Leadership decides the crew deserves a beer day, and let's go ahead and plan on making that happen. Unfortunately, you realize you've got a big problem. There's no beer on board. This is the story of the Great Beer Run in the Indian Ocean. I was the executive officer aboard the USS HOWARD, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer named in honor of Medal of Honor recipient First Sergeant Jimmy E. Howard. We were on a 6-month deployment conducting anti-piracy operations along the coast of Africa in the Indian Ocean. By that point, we had been at sea for 32 straight days, no port visits, no breaks, just the endless horizon. So I'm speaking with the commanding officer and the command master chief, and I say, "Hey, Skipper, it looks like we're getting pretty close to becoming eligible to have our own beer day." For those of you who don't know, beer day is a Navy tradition where that if a ship is out to sea consecutively for more than 45 days, each sailor on board the ship, as long as they're of legal age, are eligible to have 2 beers apiece. Now, being out to sea for a long time, having 2 beers is like a treasure chest of goodness. So I head down and talk to our operations officer to see if there's anything possible that we can do to get some beer. And as luck would have it, he tells me an Australian Navy supply ship will be passing within 50 miles of us the next day. So we get on the radio and call the Australian ship and explain our situation. And we ask if they might have any beer to spare. To my surprise, they say, "No worries, mate, we'll help you out." I couldn't believe it. The Australians were going to save our beer day. So I immediately tasked our operations officer and navigation officer to come up with a game plan that will work. A few minutes later, they both show up to me and say, "We've got a plan. If we adjust our course now, we'll be able to close within 2 miles of the Australian ship tomorrow morning, and utilizing our SH-60 Bravo Seahawk helicopter, we'll be able to transfer the beer between the 2 ships." Immediately following the captain giving approval to conduct the plan, I immediately grabbed the helicopter detachment officer in charge, also known as the air boss, and our supply officer to make sure they were both in on the plan and would make sure everything was ready to go tomorrow morning. The one thing that air boss told me was that he would have to remove the passenger seats out of the back of the aircraft to make room for the beer. The next morning, everything at first seemed to go well. The helo launched on time and landed on board the Australian supply ship, at which point the Australians quickly started to load up the helicopter with some classic Australian beer, such as Victoria Bitter, Foster's, and Carlton Draught. Unfortunately, a few minutes later, our helo pilot radioed back sounding a little nervous. Sir, they might have loaded us with a little too much beer. We're close to the weight limit." After some quick math and a few deep breaths, they confirmed the helo could take off safely, but just barely. When the helicopter landed on deck, it was like Christmas morning at sea. We unloaded every case carefully and locked it away. The last thing we needed was a few missing beers before beer day. The crew was ecstatic. Spirits were sky high as we planned our Steel Beach picnic, which is the Navy speak for a barbecue on the flight deck. Burgers, music, volleyball, and once, no stress. But just 2 days later, new orders came in. We were supposed to head to Aqaba, Jordan, and would pull in on day 43. So technically, we hadn't made the 45-day mark, but we weren't about to waste that hard-earned beer. When we arrived at the pier in Aqaba, we set up a beer garden right there on the waterfront. Tables, tents, music, the works. The first night, half the crew enjoyed the beers, while the second night, the other half got theirs. Everyone got a turn, and everybody celebrated. And just like that, the beer run of 2009 became one of the most unforgettable sea stories I had while on active duty. So that's how we pulled off the great beer run in the middle of the Indian Ocean, thanks to some quick thinking, a helicopter, and some very generous Australians. If you like this story, please give me a like, subscribe to my channel, and join me next time on Chuck's Pub's Fireside Chats, where the sea stories are always salty and the beer is always cold. Cheers.